Hi, my name's Amber Knoll, and I'm the Health and Human Sciences Educator for Purdue Extension here in Tippecanoe County. Thank you for joining us today on our third and final event in our Cooking Live Facebook series. A few housekeeping things. You may hear the voice of Rachel Smith, who is an educator from Ripley County. She will be helping to field the chat box for me as I demonstrate an easy hummus recipe. So please participate, ask any questions that you may have. We have a few poll items, and Rachel will help get that information to me as we go along. A little bit about Purdue Extension. We offer non-formal community-based education in all 92 counties across the state. In HHS Extension, our goal is to strengthen families, spend smart, eat right, and live well. So if you've joined us on our previous two events, you have learned the importance of incorporating whole grains into your diet, and we made a carrot cake oatmeal in the electric programmable pressure cooker. And then last month in February, we learned more about the Mediterranean diet, and we made a Moroccan pastiche. So as I mentioned today, we will be making a quick hummus, and our goal is to really drive home the point that you can eat healthy on the go. You don't have to rely on prepackaged snacks or anything like that. If you set a little bit of time apart every week, it's very easy to plan out some healthy snacks that you can take with you throughout your day. So we will start off with a poll. So how many of you eat snacks throughout the day? Either yes, you love them, or no, you can go pretty long without a snack. You usually just eat at meals. And while I'm waiting for people to respond, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for our hummus recipe, I am starting off with a can of garbanzo beans. You may know them as chickpeas. These have been drained and rinsed. So a study published by the Bean Institute in 2009 said that draining and rinsing your beans can remove as much as 41% of the sodium. So that's a really important step, especially if we're trying to watch how much sodium we're incorporating into our diet. So I'm going to put in 1 can, it was a 16-ounce can, low sodium variety of garbanzo beans, and I said these were drained and rinsed. So I'm putting these into our food processor. If you don't have a food processor, use a blender. If you've got a stick handheld blender, that's also great. Use whatever is available to you. If you prefer a thicker hummus, you can also use a potato masher. So I've got the lid on. I'm going to go ahead and blend this in our food processor. And I just want to make sure that my beans are starting to get broken up. So I'm not blending them completely smooth at this time. I just want to start breaking them up. So as I keep adding ingredients, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of tahini. And tahini is a sesame seed paste. Most of us are able to find it in the international section of our grocery stores. If you can't find it, you could make your own with sesame seeds and sesame seed oil, or you can substitute in your favorite nut butter, as long as it's a plain nut butter like an almond butter or cashew butter. You can also skip the tahini if you don't prefer that flavor, or if you would rather use something else. I'm also adding a tablespoon of olive oil. You can also substitute that for canola or your other favorite oil. The really nice thing about this recipe is that it can be easily swapped out for ingredients you have on hand or what is your favorite ingredient. So recipes don't really know if you're following them or not. It's kind of like when you are going to a new destination and you're relying on a map. So the recipe just tells you where you are expecting to go and how you could get there. Like your car, when you're following a map, your car has no idea if you're really following the map or not. So same thing with the recipe. It's a suggestion. If you don't like what the recipe says or you'd rather use a different ingredient, there is no problem substituting that in. So right now, I just cut a lemon in half and I'm adding about a tablespoon of the fresh juice. Want to make sure that I don't get any seeds in there. And so if you just have bottled lemon juice, that's also completely fine. And then I'm also adding in a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And then I'm seasoning this hummus with about a 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. You could also use paprika, but I happen to have chili powder on hand. and then the same amount, so about half a teaspoon of ground cumin. So I'm going to add all of that in, and then my last ingredient is 1 clove of garlic. So I'm going to go ahead, smash that, and take the skin off and add my garlic whole. And then I'm just going to blend this and give this some time to blend and become the desired texture. So snacking is our theme for the day. A lot of us do prefer to eat snacks. So according to the dietary guidelines for Americans, most of us, around 40 to 50%, consume 2 to 3 snacks a day. So most of us, about half, are choosing to eat snacks. And snacks can be a really great way to incorporate in some extra nutritious foods throughout our dietary plan. So snacks are more than just chips or chocolate or cheese or something like that. When we take the time to incorporate in fruits and vegetables and whole grains, we can make sure that we are getting the necessary nutrients that we need throughout the day. So we'll check in our desired consistency here. So it's a little thick, so I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of water. I might need more, I might need less, but I'm going to add it a tablespoon at a time. So we'll start off with just 1. Rachel, do you have any feedback from our poll about how many people eat snacks?
Absolutely, Amber. We actually have almost 90% of people say that they love eating snacks.
Oh, perfect. So this hummus recipe, we are going to serve with a whole grain pita, some bell pepper slices, and some cucumber slices. So for those of you who said that you enjoy eating snacks, this is a great way to incorporate whole grains, fruits, or some vegetables. We're not eating any fruits with this right now. And then some protein from our hummus as well. So I'm just checking this bowl to make sure that I've got most of it well incorporated. Looks like I need to add about 1 more tablespoon of water and blend again. So I mentioned balanced snacks. When you are plating out your snacks, you want to try to think about My Plate. So My Plate's a really good reminder for us to eat more fruits and vegetables, to think about adding whole grains into our diet, to incorporate low-fat dairy, and then different sources of protein. So beans have a lot of protein in them, so we've got our protein covered. We're also using a whole wheat pita, so our whole grain criteria. And whole grains are really great. We mentioned these back in our January cooking demonstration. So they have a lot of fiber. They have different vitamins and minerals that are really important for our diet. And then different vegetables, we always say to eat the rainbow. Different vegetables help us get different nutrients. So our hummus looks to be pretty smooth. I'm going to go ahead and get this into a bowl. And so as I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and ask about our next poll. So for those of you who said that you did eat snacks, where are you getting those snacks from? Do you usually pack them at home, or do you rely on a vending machine or another convenience option? So I know I personally usually try to get them at home. So I spend about an hour a week trying to pre-portion out some snacks. I usually do yogurt, I do a fruit or a vegetable, and then every once in a while I'll incorporate in a whole grain, especially if I'm making hummus like this for myself. So I've just got that out into a bowl. I'm going to set that on the side. And as I continue here, I'm going to go ahead and slice our pita bread into different wedges. So this is a whole grain pita. And so a trick for knowing if you are eating a whole grain product, when you read the nutrition facts label, it will be the first ingredient, whole grain wheat, whole grain, whatever the grain is. So 1 serving for this is half a pita. So this would be a whole pita. So this is 1 serving, half a pita. And I'm just going to cut it into triangles. And then I'm going to tear these triangles in half. So that way I've got more dippers. Rachel, how is our poll going?
Poll is going well. We are 50-50. Half of us buy snacks from vending machines at the store, and half of us are bringing the food from home.
Okay, perfect. So that's pretty typical. So a lot of us are eating more snacks and meals away from home than when we used to. So about 18 of us in 1977 ate food away from home, where now it's up around 33% of us back in 2009. So there's a good chance that that number has increased. I know a lot of us are busy. We've got all sorts of activities. And so when we take the time to make sure that we've got a healthy option on us, when that hunger strikes us, then we know that we are able to eat something nutritious. That way, when you do get hungry, you don't feel like you have to go to the vending machine or stop somewhere else for food. So like I said, I'm just cutting these pitas into wedges and then I'm tearing them in half. So there's usually that pocket, and so I'm just separating out the pocket to get smaller squares. You can toast these if you're interested. So you can spray both sides with a non-stick cooking spray or even brush them with some oil of your choice, either olive oil, canola oil, whatever is your favorite. And you can bake them in the oven 350 for about 10 minutes or less. I'd start checking them around every 5 minutes. And then that helps them make more chip-like. I know some of us like crunchy snacks, and that can be a really great addition to our hummus dip that we made as well. So some other healthy snack ideas would be guacamole on a whole grain piece of toast. You could do cottage cheese with some broccoli or carrot stick. The goal is to incorporate more of those food groups from my plate. So when you are planning out a snack, try to shoot for 2 or 3 different food groups from my plate. So a carbohydrate and a protein, making sure that you're getting fruits and vegetables in there. So some other ideas would be nuts and seeds and a piece of string cheese. You could also do a yogurt and an apple. So incorporating 2 to 3 different my plate food groups can help make sure that you are having a balanced snack. A lot of us also struggle with portion control when it comes to snacking. And so a good rule of thumb is trying to keep it to around 200 calories or less. So remember, this is a snack, it's not a meal. And so making sure that you're paying attention to how much you're eating. So something like an apple and a string cheese that's well portioned. It's usually pre-portioned. An apple comes in one size and so does the string cheese. And so it's just enough to help curb those feelings of hunger. The benefit to not letting yourself get too hungry is that you won't overindulge in maybe chips or candy or something like that. And then at mealtime, you can focus on incorporating more of those whole grains, those fresh fruits and vegetables, the dairy, all of those My Plate reminders. So I've got my pita wedges split up. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting up our vegetables. I've got a red bell pepper and I've got a cucumber, and I'm just going to slice these. And so another good tip when we're thinking about being on the go is to try to think about staying hydrated. Many of us are not drinking enough water throughout the day. And so sometimes when we are dehydrated, we may feel hungry, but we just need to drink some water. And so making sure that you've got a reusable water bottle so you can take your water with you on the go, or if you know that you are going somewhere where there will be water, can help remind you to stay hydrated. So as I start to fill up my cutting board, I'm actually going to bring over my Tupperware containers. So these are great. Once a week, I try to fill up as many Tupperwares for my snacks as I'm going to need. So I've got one for my pita wedges. Remember, I said that a half of a pita was a serving size. So I cut each half into fourths and then split those fourths apart. So I'm gonna grab 8 pita wedges here, or pita slices, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put that in my Tupperware here, put the lid on. And then a good serving size for fruits and vegetables when we're eating a snack is 1 cup. So it's hard to measure out these slices and do a 1 cup measure. So I'm just going to make my best guess. If you would like to cut them smaller, so you could measure them in a cup, that's absolutely perfectly fine. Just gonna slice these. So I'm going to take a couple slices of my bell pepper and put those in my other container. Put the rest here on the side. And then I'm also going to cut up my cucumber. So as I finish chopping up my vegetables, I'm going to go ahead and lead into our next poll. And so our final poll is if you use the nutrition facts label. So nutrition facts labels can be a really great tool for us to decide if a food or a snack is a healthy option for us. So our goal with that is to help consumers make better decisions about the foods that they are eating. So I've got some cucumber slices. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my container here. And so the nutrition facts panel is changing. So the current deadline for everyone to be changed over is January 1st, 2020. So we've got just about a year left. And right now we're seeing both the old label and the new label on the shelf. So I'm going to grab some examples here. So this is an example of the old nutrition facts label, and this is the example of the new nutrition facts label. I guarantee if you go to your fridge or your pantry, you'll see both right now. Both are currently being used. And so what's been updated on the new nutrition facts label is that the serving sizes have been updated to be more realistic for the size and the amount of food we eat in one sitting. You'll also notice that the calories are in bigger, bolder fonts, so they are easier to read per serving. The daily values have also been updated on the side. And so a quick rule of thumb, if it's 5% or less, that's considered a low source of that nutrient. So on this, we have cholesterol. These are honey-made graham crackers. So for cholesterol, we have 0%, so that's less than 5. It's a low source of cholesterol. The other side of that is for the high end. So if something is 20% daily value or more, that's considered a high source of that nutrient. So on this, I've got 16% added sugars. And so that's getting pretty close up there. If it were around 23% added sugars, that's a high source of added sugars. Added sugars is also new, speaking of added sugars. So we've pulled that out. It's always had the total sugars line, but now the added sugars helps us decide how much sugar has been added during processing versus what naturally occurs in the food. At the bottom, there has been a change in the required nutrients. So it used to be iron, calcium, vitamin A, and vitamin C. Iron and calcium are still there. Vitamin A and vitamin C are no longer required to be on the nutrition facts label. And vitamin D and potassium have been added to this label. We know that most Americans are not getting enough vitamin D or potassium. So having those nutrients pulled out on our nutrition facts label helps us decide if what we're eating is a good source of those nutrients or not. So Rachel, how's our poll going with how many people use the nutrition facts label?
We have about 70% of people say that they always check the nutrition facts.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a really great tool, and it's there for us to help decide, make easier decisions about our food. And it is changing based on new science. So we've learned a lot more about nutrition science since the first nutrition facts panel came out. And so it's been updated to reflect those changes in science and to help us make those decisions. So what I'm doing now, I've got my cup, about a cup of vegetables in my one container. I've got my serving of pita in my other container. And now in my last one, I'm going to scoop out a 1/4 cup of our hummus dip that we made, and that's a serving size. So we should get around 7 servings of hummus from our one recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that. And when we're talking about portion control, using measuring cups is a really great way to make sure that we are making sure that we're getting an adequately sized portion of food. So a lot of nutrition facts panels will also tell you what an appropriate serving size is and how many servings per package. Recipes can also say how much they serve as well. And so making sure that we're measuring not only helps us decide if we're eating the right amount, but helps us to see that we are getting the right amount out of our recipe and package as well. Rachel, do we have any questions in our poll?
Oh boy, do we.
Okay.
I've got, I think, six questions.
Okay.
First one comes from Tanya, and she says, back when you were working with the garlic, what about that pre-chopped garlic that you can get in the grocery stores? Is that any good?
So if that's what you prefer to use, there is nothing wrong with using that. I use that a lot at home as well because it's easy. And if you prefer garlic powder, that's also perfectly fine as well. Use whatever works best for you in your own kitchen. Good question.
Another question was from Dee, and she asked, could we use a different type of beans in this hummus?
Great question. Absolutely. So black bean hummus is really popular. I know white bean hummus made with cannellini beans is also really popular. I've seen pinto bean. I know some people use lentils or boiled peanuts. So you would follow the same recipe and you would just substitute out the garbanzo beans for your favorite kind of bean. The other way that this dip is really flexible is with seasoning. So I use black pepper, cumin, and chili powder. If you like smoked paprika, that's great. If you want to use some herbs like Italian seasonings, or if you have fresh herbs on hand, that can be a really great addition as well. If you don't like the seasonings I use today, maybe you don't like cumin, feel free to leave it out or substitute in your favorite seasoning as well. Good question.
Thank you. Carmen asks, potatoes or vegetables, does that mean that chips are healthy?
Not necessarily. So a lot of foods can be incorporated very well into any kind of diet. The issue with potato chips is most of us are eating a very large amount in one sitting. Most of us are not relying on that nutrition facts panel to see the serving size. They're also deep fried and they're very heavy in sodium. So potatoes, when they are baked in the oven and eaten with a side of vegetables and with just a few toppings, most of us really overload our baked potatoes. Those can very quickly become a less healthy option, where potato chips are usually fried and have a lot of sodium. So that's not quite the same thing as eating a baked potato. Good question.
Back when we were talking about bringing snacks from home or buying them from the store or vending machine, Stephanie asked, what are some more healthy options to choose from a vending machine?
So there have been a lot of great additions to vending machines lately. If you are able to see a trail mix or some nuts, that can be a great option. Some of those are really high in sugar, especially added sugar. Some of them have things like chocolate chips or candy coated chocolates in them. So if you are choosing something like a trail mix, make sure that you are paying attention to the serving size on the nutrition facts panel. There could be as many as 2 or 3 servings in one package. And then maybe decide to put those chocolate covered those candy coated chocolates off to the side for a snack later or a treat. A lot of vending machines are also adding in baked chips or crackers, so that can be a healthier option. And every once in a while, I come across a vending machine that has whole pieces of fruit wrapped in plastic wrap. So something like an apple or an orange or a banana. And those are always a great choice when you can choose fresh fruits and vegetables. Good question. Okay, so healthy on the go is kind of the theme for this as well. So I mentioned that I will spend about an hour making sure that I have portioned out snacks for the week. So I've got my lunch bag here. In the bottom of it, I've got an ice pack. And so that helps keep my food at the proper temperature to prevent bacterial growth as I'm on the go. So that's really important. We always want to remember our food safety. So I'm going to go ahead and add in our chopped vegetables. I also have pre-portioned out some yogurt. And then I'm adding our hummus and our pita, and then an apple as well. So if you are on the go a lot, investing in a good lunchbox and some ice packs and reusable containers really makes a difference. If you can put about an hour apart every week to try to take the time to wash and chop your vegetables and have it easily accessible for you during your day, you're more likely to eat it. And our goal is not only portion control, but making sure that we're getting enough fruits and vegetables, those healthy whole grains, those lean proteins, the low-fat dairy in as well. So having the tools necessary to make sure that you can eat healthy on the go is really important as well. So that's all I've got. Rachel, any last-minute questions?
Yeah, we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Tanya asked, what is the best way to store the hummus?
So hummus can be stored for as long as you can keep it in the fridge, up to 7 days, and an airtight container is the best way to store it. And that goes for any bean variety you're using as well, any bean dip variation you would make off the hummus. So around 7 days tops in an airtight container.
Then Stephanie asked, what is the best way to find information on how to read the new nutrition labels?
Great question. So I know that the USDA will have some information out on that as well. But if you are curious, contact your local extension educator and they will have some resources for you as well. I know that the Mayo Clinic has put out a couple articles, so is the Cleveland Clinic. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics will have information, so will the American Heart Association, the American Diabetic Association. So anywhere that you would get credible health and nutrition information will be a great resource for the nutrition facts label changes. And of course, feel free to reach out to your local extension educator as well if you need help navigating some of that.
Great. And the last question I have is from Tanya, and she asks, is this recipe diabetic friendly?
Good question. So I'm always going to tell you to defer to your own medical team, which hopefully includes a registered dietitian. This is a great recipe. So this is a healthy carb, it's low fat. We're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So this can easily be incorporated into any meal plan or diet that someone is on. If you are concerned about your own specific dietary plan, touch base with your registered dietitian and they'll help you figure out if this is a good option for you or not. Good question. Okay, and I think Rachel said that was our last question. So thank you everyone for joining us today. For more information, you can check out the dietary guidelines for Americans or your local extension educator. And I hope you gained some tools for navigating not only the nutrition facts panel, but also some healthy snacks on the go. Thanks for joining us.